Good day everyone, my name is Aidan Angela Figueroa from BPED 2A and today I will discuss the part of benefits of GMOs or genetically modified organisms. So let's start. According to the study shows some of the potential benefits of GMOs or genetically modified organisms, it shows that it has a higher efficiency in farming with the use of pesticide resistance or herbicide tolerant of GMO crops. There will be less use for herbicides and pesticides and lower costs for labor and cultivation. So when we say efficiency in farming, so those genetically modified organisms use in crops, so they will be have a tolerance to when it comes to or resistance of the pesticides and herbicides. So in that case, mapadali lang ang the production and cost of labor and cultivation when it comes to efficiency in farming. So the next one is the increased in GMO crops resistance to pest and disease means increase in potential growth and harvest, control in fertility, controlling the purity of hybrid seeds. GMO seeds are ensure higher yields. So it uh, it also those genetically modified crops, it has potentially has increase in harvest or increase in production because they are already a resistance when it comes to pests because genetically modified naman good sila and they are naturally nga or scientifically produced nga resistance na sila or tolerance na when it comes to pest or any chemicals, so they can grow naturally on their own as higher level of developed plants because they are genetically modified crops. And when it comes to fertility, so they have the control and purity when it comes to preserving their own hybrid seeds. So that was the benefits of GMO seeds or genetically modified crops when it comes to its plants or crops produced. So the next one is the increase in food processing, altered characteristic of GMO crops, help ease foods processing. So when it comes to processing, especially and food processing, especially when it comes to uh, those canned goods or any kind of crops related or products that is being processed. So those genetically modified crops or plants was very useful and very easy when it comes to food processing because they are good in producing the products or when it comes to harvesting. Okay, so the next is the improvement of desirable characteristics of GMOs, offer to longer shelf life, enhance color and taste, enhance production or reduction of enzymes and other modified characteristic of plants, animals, and microorganisms. So dili lang sa resistance when it comes to pest or any chemical pesticides or herbicides makabenefit us when it comes to genetically modified crops. It also improve the desirable of characteristic when it comes to longer shelf life. So dili sila dayon malata or dili dayon sila ma-expired or dili dayon sila madaot because they have a longer shelf life, and also it enhance the color. So kung makita tag naturally wala dili genetically modified plants nga ni grow lang nga pale, so when it comes to genetically modified na it possibly or potentially it will become greener, it will become healthier, and it has a better taste, also better color, enhance especially when it comes to production and reduction of enzymes nga makadaot sa plants. So that was the very important benefits of the genetically modified organism when it comes to crops, and also in the any other plants, also in animals, and also in other microorganisms. So that was the very important benefit when it comes to genetically modified organisms to our products. So the next one is the nutritional and pharmaceutical enhancement. Genetically modified crops like maize fortified with lysine and golden rice, fortified with vitamin A and iron, there are now edible vitamins of vaccines rather for viral and diarrheal diseases. So when it comes to health benefits, so naasad ang genetically modified organisms ana. So natay gitawag nga good bacteria nga gidala mismo sa genetically modified organisms into the food we intake. So kana maka-produce sila og better lysine or a better vitamin and iron that is good to consume into our body from the plants that they produce using the genetically modified organisms. Okay, so it can cure some sickness, or it can help to reduce or less the other diseases or the other uh, harmful diseases or viruses into our body. So it serves like a vaccine to us, a cure to us. So that was also an important benefits when it comes to genetically modified organisms into our foods. And the last one is genetically modified organisms also reduce the use of fertilizer and pesticides. So from the first palangganiha, when it comes to resistance or tolerance on herbicides and pesticides, importante sad ni sa nga benefits sa genetically modified organisms that it reduce the use of fertilizer and pesticides. So mostly the chemicals or the hard chemicals that been substance to fertilizer and pesticides is makadaot sa atong lawas. So when we use the genetically modified into organism to produce our own plants or our own crops, dili na tayo mahinahanglan nila because they have the natural development of resistance. So maka-stud na sila to resist the tolerance when it comes to kanang many enzymes, many bacteria nga makadaot sa ilaha. So we don't have to use or mo-reduce na tayo gamit sa fertilizers and pesticides nga makadaot sa atong lawas mismo. So that was the use of genetically modified organisms when it comes to our crops. So that's the benefits. So there are over 40 million acres of genetically modified farmlands, farmlands rather, all over the world. The top 5 countries that operate the GMO farmlands are the United States. So first is the United States. Next is the Brazil, Argentina, India, and Canada. So I hope nga sunod maapil na maapil na ang Philippines, but mostly the farmlands that use genetically modified organisms is the United States. From United States, Brazil, Argentina, India, and Canada. So some of the GMO agricultural crops that have been approved for public consumption and are already in the market include alfalfa, corn, papaya, and soybean, sugar, beets, and squash. Most of these GMO crops were made to resistance to pest. So kaniha pa lang no benefits dun nga resistance dun sila when it comes to pest and other enzymes. So they have the natural tolerance na produce using the genetically modified organisms. So some examples of this food with GMO are Kellogg's corn flakes, Quaker Chewy granola bars, Ultra Slim Fast, Quaker yellow corn meal, and Alpo dry pet food. So these food are already has napatunayan na sila nga they have a resistance when it comes to pest, and they are also good examples for GMO genetically modified organisms nga giusa na nila nga mga products. So they are a good example that been produced by that. So in the animal industries also, there are ongoing researchers like studies on Pacific salmon. Yes, that salmon that grows twice faster than the native salmon, and chicken resistance of HNI bird flu viruses. However, these GMO animals are all in research laboratory and not yet approved for public consumption. So na naman nagbuhi jud og salmon nga usually kung ang salmon nga natural lang na makita nato sa ilang into a pond or natural pond was quite slimmer lang sila or gamay lang sila, but when it comes to the use of genetically modified na, so it has it has a better size na, so it has a great flesh na, great consumption for us na and other animals like chicken, but some of these are dili pa jud siya approved jud sa public na consumption, no, sa atong gobyerno. So I hope that use is produced by genetically modified organisms from the animals, production of animals that we've been consumed is ma-approve na. So that would be all for the benefits of the genetically modified organisms into our food or our crops and our plants and animals that been consumed in as our daily need. So that would be all sa sa part nga benefits of genetically modified organism. Okay, so since we are done talking about the benefits of the GMOs, so or genetically modified organisms, so now let's talk about its potential risk of GMOs or genetically modified organisms. So now let's start. So first is despite of the promising claims of GMOs or genetically modified organisms, the opponents of GMOs claims otherwise. For example, there are studies that shows a link the adoption of pesticide resistance GMO crops to significant growth of superweeds that became pesticide resistant too. This caused additional problem to more than 12 million acres of farms in United States. So nasa tay problems nga or potential risk nga mahiaguman so when it comes to using modified genetically modified organisms into our crops and plants, diba? So not all discoveries, not all inventions man sad is perfectly made. So naadyoy na potential risk nga mas mahitabo when it comes to the kung nay advantages rather nga mahitabo or ma-gain nato sa production or the development naman sa mga disadvantages nga atong ma-gain, diba? So now let's talk about the potential risk or disadvantages nga also nga atong kita or mahiaguman when it comes to using genetically modified organisms into our crops and plants and other foods or our consumable needs. So first is the opponents of GMOs have the following major concerns. So this was the major concerns, no, when it comes to say major. So mo jud ang pinaka general jud nga concern nato sa when it comes to using genetically modified organisms when it comes to producing or using into our foods. So first is the since genetic engineering is still young branch of science, so there are inadequate studies on the effects of GMOs rather to human and the environment. So since we are talking about the potential risk of the GMOs into our crops and plants or sa ato ang food, so naa say effect sa human kini, no, when it comes to our health. Of course naa na siya effect, so later on ato na explain kung asa na siya dapit sa human health and the environment. So since we are talking about the resistance and pesticides, so we are dealing about the natural cycle of the environment, no naman dyan ay natural cycle ang mahitabo so sa ato ang mga plants. So since we are inventing a better solution sa atong pag-produce sa atong mga foods, so nasa na effect sa atong environment, so the natural process na is mawala na, so kaanam-anam na og artificialize. So the next one is the genetic engineering rather promotes mutation in organisms which the long-term effect is still unknown. So since we are using the genetically modified organism or artificially made by the laboratory or the science lab of our brilliant scientists, so nadyo na mahitabo nga mga unwanted mutation of organisms, diba? Nadyo na mo exist, so which has the long-term effect sa ato body or sa ato ang plants, which is still unknown for us karon, no, is still unknown nga masabtan sa mga scientists nato because they are not expecting that nga naimong mutate nga other genes. So when it comes to our food or sa ato ang gigamit nga modified genetically modified organisms. So that was the potential risk that may happen using that genetically modified organism into our crops and plants. So the third one is or the last one is the human consumption of GMOs might have the following effects. So karon mag-talk about na ta sa ako pa gisulti ganay sa first major effects or risks that may happen is the human consumption. So kung unsay maepektuhan ni sa atong lawas, importante magyud na to nga masabdan kung unsay epekto ana sa lawas nato sa GMO, genetically modified organisms when it comes to our health. So first is the more allergic reaction to GMO food may trigger more allergic reaction, more so create new ones as side effect of the gene alternation. So since na-invent na siya nga genetically modified, so nag-expect sad ang uban or nag-expected according to the studies nga naay allergic reaction that been produced also in GMO food or genetically modified organisms food, no? Nasa na yung mahitabo nga allergic reaction to create new one side effect, the gene alteration. So since we are talking about genes, so matandog na itong atong genes nga na-produce anang GMO food that create new one effect of allergic reaction. So it might be a severe one or just a primary one, but still have a risk when it comes to allergic reaction, especially nga na mga higher mga kanang mga people nga consume is they are affected rather into any allergic reaction. Say maybe they have a sensitivity when it comes to GMO food rather. So the next one is the gene mutation. GMO food may develop abnormalities and mutation more than the desired product of the gene alteration. So since that abnormalities have been occurred to GMO, so naa mga mutation no nga mahitabo. So kay nagmutate man og lain genes ang GMO to produce or to create rather a better shelf life or better produce when it comes to using into our foods. So na jud na mo excess na pod nga mga mutation, which is a very risky mutation. So when it comes to genes of the plants, maybe ma-produce na sila lain nga product or lain mutation that could cause maybe sa ato ang health or maybe affect also our genes kay nag-mutate pa na sila basi mutate po na sa atong body. So that was what we call gene mutation risk when it comes to GMO food. So the third one is the antibiotic resistance, no? GMO food contains antibiotic resistance genes. This may cause disease-causing bacteria, likely to be more antibiotic resistance too, increasing the possibility of widespread of the disease. So since kana siya nga mga plants is genetically modified na, so they are resistant into other enzymes, into other bacterias nga, especially when it comes to risky chemicals, pesticides and herbicides. So they are also contains an antibiotic resistance. So if we intake that GMO food rather or genetically modified food nga ato ang gi-intake, so it could be possibly nga kita is ma-antibiotic resistance, no? So kung kita nagkasakit ka, moinom tag antibiotic, so possibly ka na nga antibiotic nga itong gi-intake is dili mo gana sa ato kay since we are keep on consuming genetically modified organism foods, no? So that was possibly risk for us, no? So the last one of the human consumption of GMO foods rather, nutritional value of GMO food may have changed in their nutritional value. Of course, since we are talking about artificially made or laboratories made nga mga mga food na or genetically modified foods na, so there will be of course kanang changes of their nutritional value rather, no? Na say mo uban is a better when it comes to benefits, no, a better good, no, or outstanding nutritional value, but there are also a risky fact that naji mga mutate nga lain nga ma-develop nga lain when it comes to nutritional value. So it may be risky for us, harmful for our body or the other living creatures nga, especially also sa animals nag-produce, di ba? It may be risky for us also to a potential risk for us to consume that GMO food. So that was all for the a potential risk that may happen or that we may find into genetically modified organism foods. So that would be all for my part, and I hope you learned something. So that would be all. Thank you for listening.